Yes.
Superb.
So welcome. To our discussion, everyone, on disability and income support with myself, Senator Janet Rice, Senator Jordan Steele-John,
hello,
here in Perth, and Dr. Sophie Reid-Singer. So I want to start by acknowledging that here in Perth we're on Whadjuk Noongar Budja,
yes,
and
indeed.
acknowledge all First Nations peoples, and that no matter where you are joining us, if you are in so-called Australia, you are on stolen land.
Yes.
And this is, always was, always will be stolen land.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got so far to go, and as Greens we're really committed to be working with our First Nations peoples to be getting justice, working for treaty and sovereignty for our First Nations peoples.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and particularly the conversation tonight, we know this afternoon, so many First Nations peoples who are struggling with disability and the limitations of the disability support pension,
Yes.
and yeah, really doing it very, very tough. So,
it's just the kicker, which we've spoken about a lot, where if you're able to get through the absolute minefield of the impairment tables to get on the DSP in the first place, if you're able to get through, and survive some of the quite discriminatory ways you've spoken about, and you might interact with people at Centrelink through that process, then you're in a situation where, should you have the sheer audacity to do something like get in a relationship with somebody, your DSP is reduced. And it's absolutely outrageous to me that we're in a situation where if a disabled person wants to have a partner, their partner is expected to then take on part of their caring role to be able to kind of compensate for that. So,
but having access to the DSP has also been like the first time in my adult life that I've felt kind of independent, and I really don't want it to be taken away. But I do think it could be better.
I think it's a real it's a double-edged sword, really. Of when you manage to get on the DSP, a lot of people have shared with us that there is the relief that you finally managed to access it, and you've gone through all the hoops and you're getting some support. But then the barriers around what happens to you if you get a partner and all that kind of stuff also then limits your life in new ways, that people just, no other group is kind of limited in that way. It really is a bit of a double-edged sword.
So did you want to ask us some questions, Sophie?
Yeah, actually my question is related to that. For me, having choice and control on the supports I need to access society is independence. Statistics show that 46% of people receiving the DSP rely solely on that income, but due to the partner income assessment, 100% of recipients have to choose between marrying or living with their partners and keeping their financial independence. Not disclosing a relationship to Centrelink is considered welfare fraud and can land someone up to $100,000 in debt or up to 10 years in jail. Do you agree that the partner income assessment for the DSP should be stopped in keeping with a contemporary Australian society where love is love?
Yeah, it's certainly pretty cooked, and it's just really unfair the way that it operates now. Yeah. And as you say, I mean, it's a choice between marrying or living with their partners and keeping their financial independence. And I think it really needs to be looked at in terms of how that joint income is considered.
Yeah.
Certainly in the proposal that we took to the election, there were two things that we felt would address that. One was just raising the rate of income support, which meant that you at least you would be able to earn so much more or get so much more from income support, so that you would still be able to get that. And then having your partner being able to earn a lot more, and with a taper rate being much less, so that any cuts to your income support wouldn't kick in for a lot longer, or until you'd earned a lot more. So it's it's something that really across all of the social security system really needs to be properly looked at.
Yeah.
And it was certainly something that came up in the DSP inquiry, and it's certainly something that's coming up now in the poverty inquiry as well.
Yeah, and I would say from my perspective, Sophie, I think it really does need to be looked at, as Janet said, and I actually think there's a particular, like, we can have a conversation about the role of partner income in the broader social security system, but what really, let me try to put this in a polite way, what really frustrates me about its existence in relation to the DSP is that there is an assumption within it that that your DSP should be reduced because your partner will be taking on some of the care and burden sharing of being in a relationship with a disabled person, and that's wrong. If you're a disabled person that is in a relationship, you should just be able to be in that relationship, right? And your DSP should be paid to you to cover the additional costs of being a disabled person that so often fall outside of being on the NDIS, or are the result of not being able to have an additional income stream because of the fact that your disability prevents you from working, right? None of those things mean that your partner's income should come across to kind of meet some of the costs of you being disabled. That's just wrong. So I think, yeah, and it comes from a period of thinking that was very paternalistic and very much well, if you're in a relationship with a disabled person, you'll be bearing that burden too, and that is just gross. We should not go anywhere near that anymore.
Actually, one other thing I wanted to add was that during the COVID, they actually changed the rules as to how much you could earn before your partner's income, how much your partner could earn before your benefit was reduced, and they reduced it down to, in fact, that you could, every $100 that your partner earned, your benefit was reduced by $27, which is much less than it's now gone back to. And so what we were saying in our position is that at the very least, that measure that was introduced during the pandemic should be made permanent.
Yeah,
they did it then, and so we could continue doing it now.
Yeah, absolutely.